Back in 2014, when I was living in the Netherlands, I decided to learn tailoring. I thought it was going to be super easy. I can go on Google or YouTube, find all the knowledge, and then make a jacket. Not only did I not find the knowledge, but I also couldn't find the materials. And that was the annoying part. You know why? Because I couldn't even practice on my own and experiment and just play. So, what was my problem? First of all, I had to go and find all the different suppliers that potentially sold the materials that I thought I should be looking for. When I found them, I didn't know which materials to choose and how much of each material. So you can already imagine how doubtful that can make you. Then there was the problem of not every supplier that I found had all the materials that I needed. So I had to buy 2 materials from one supplier, 3 from another, 5 from one abroad, and all of them charged like astronomical shipping amounts. So I was paying more for shipping and the time that I was spending finding all these suppliers than just getting on with the work and learning of the techniques. You may go through the same process. In fact, I know that many of you who have been contacted me are complaining about why can't we find the right materials in our country? Why do we have to order everything from the UK or Italy or some other country that supplies it? And why are they always so bloody expensive if they are in a country where there aren't many tailors? Now, that is a problem. Why is it a problem? Because if I want to talk you through the steps of making a jacket, I cannot be successful if you can't find materials. So, for that problem, we have a solution. Here it is. We call it Purple Box. What is the Purple Box? This box contains all the materials, exactly the same materials that I'm going to be using in the upcoming lessons to show you how to make a jacket from start to finish, assembled for you to the exact amounts that you need so that you can just get on with the work and not worry about which materials you have to order, how much, which supplier you have to find, and all of that. Now, we have a Purple Box for both models, the traditional model and the pagoda model. Let's begin by having a look at the materials that we have assembled for the traditional model. Bah! The first thing that you're going to see is your bundle. Your bundle is wrapped up exactly the same way as a professional tailor would receive his or her work. When I was an apprentice on Savile Row, this is exactly how I would receive my bundle to work on it. At the bottom of our box, we have the patterns that I'm going to be using to make our jacket. You can just cut these out and you're ready to go. So let's remove our box and see what's inside our bundle. What you see here wrapped around our bundle is our sleeve head roll. This is made of wadding and bias canvas. It's going to help our sleeves to maintain their roll throughout the life of the jacket so that they're not crushed and kind of like flimsy looking. The canvas definitely helps with that. Wadding on its own is not going to be strong enough in some cases. Let's look at our body canvas. Our body canvas is wider than the average body canvas that's available on the market. This is a good thing. Why? Because it allows us to cut things on the double. Usually body canvases are very narrow and what you have to do is to cut things twice. That does not add to the experience that I want you to have when you're learning how to make a jacket. We want things to be easy and accurate. It's made of wool and viscose. The wool is very bouncy and the viscose gives it a lot of body and stiffness. There is some starch on it and this is really going to uphold the shape of our jacket. Let's have a look at our fabric. As I mentioned, linen is what I have chosen to show you how a jacket is made because a linen, when in plain weave, upholds its shape quite nicely. It shows the grain very clearly and also the creases. All I want you to do during the process of making this jacket is to develop good habits, and linen does exactly that. Now, we have our viscose lining right here, which helps us to get in and out of our jacket. Whenever you don't have lining, it sometimes is very difficult to get in there. All these materials are going to grip your arms and prevent you from getting in. It's also very slippery, so if you haven't worked with lining, you may struggle. But rest assured, if you focus and have some patience, you'll get used to it in no time. Next up, we have our pocketing, also known as silesia. This is made of 100% cotton, and we're going to use it to, of course, make our pocket bags. But we're also going to use it to reinforce certain areas like our lapels to give it a bit more body and a nicer roll. Then we have our horsehair. Now, our horsehair in combination with our body canvas is going to give our foreparts a smooth look. As you can see, this does not crease easily, even if you use a hot or heavy iron. The warp, that's the length grain, is made of cotton, and the weft, the horizontal grain, is made of horsehair. These hairs are quite sharp, and if they rub against your skin or around your neck, that's where the break line usually is, it's going to get itchy. So we need some domet to cover that up. Before we get to the domet, however, let's first have a look at our color canvas. Now, our color canvas is made of 100% linen. It's quite stiff, it's got some starch, and we need all of that because the color is an area that receives a lot of strain. So we need a strong material to act as the skeleton of our color. Then we have our domet. I quite have a lot of, let's say, love for domet. I use it on shoulder pads, I use it in the chest area of the jacket, and the domet that we have here is made of 100% cotton again, and it's quite nice. It's got a good quality, a good feel to it, and it really will prevent all these hairs from poking through. Then we have our marking thread. This is again made of 100% cotton. It's thicker than average basting thread, and we need it to be thicker because it's supposed to stay in the fabric until we take it out. We don't want our mark stitches to disappear in the middle of the making process. Wrapped around it, we have 2 number 5 needles, and number 5 needles are ideal for mark stitching. Any smaller, they're going to be very difficult to thread, and any bigger, you won't be able to make small bites to get accurate marking on your panels. Then we have some fray-check. Now, we need fray-check whenever we're making buttonholes. It's going to be your best friend. But we're also going to use fray-check on our front edges around our collar once we have cut these into the shapes that we want. It gives it a very strong edge, and it also prevents it from fraying. You don't want to be making something that is fraying all the time. So fray-check is going to help us with that. Then we have some thin fusible interlining. This thin fusible interlining is almost like a net. It's very, very light and see-through. We are only going to use it to give certain areas like the pocket mouths or the in-breasts a little bit of stability so that we can work on it a lot easier and achieve good results. Then we have our linen holland. As I mentioned, linen holland will get very crisp once it gets wet and then dried with the iron. And we're going to need that effect for the outbreast welt of our jacket. Well, wrapped inside our linen holland, we have a bunch of things. So first of all, we have our edge tape. This edge tape is going to prevent certain areas from stretching out. We're going to use this along our lapels, our front edge, the bottom of our jacket, the back of our collar, around our armholes, and it's going to help those areas to be strong and stretch resistant. Then we have our basting cotton, which is what we're going to use to baste up our jacket. It's slightly thinner than our mark stitching thread, and you're going to use it on the single, whereas the mark stitching thread, you'll need a bit more of that because you're going to use that on the double. Again, wrapped around it, we have 2 number 5 needles, which is, in my opinion, the ideal size needle for basting anything. Then we have our machine thread, which perfectly matches the color of our fabric. And of course, whenever we are sewing anything, we have to make markings. And for that, we have 3 pieces of Jinbutsu chalk, which is a Japanese chalk. Tailors love it. So I think you deserve good chalk whenever you are trying to learn how to make a jacket. Bad chalk makes thick lines, it brushes out, or sometimes it stays in forever. And so this is not going to do any of that. Then we have our shoulder pads. For the traditional model, I have chosen a standard 1 centimeter thick pad. It has nothing extravaganza to it. It's a standard pad just to soften the ends of those shoulders and to give it a bit of a smooth line. Now, after that, we have our buttons. Now, what you see as a package for our buttons is actually paper that we have left over in the workshop. So maybe sometimes you'll see lines or numbers or markings that I've made when I made the pattern. Our buttons are made of bioresin. It's imitation horn. It has the same effect and design as horn, but it doesn't have the risk of the horn being sourced from somewhere unethical, let's say. And I know that some of you are perhaps sensitive to that. After our buttons, we have our felt. Our felt is going to be padded to our color canvas and is going to give our color canvas a lot of body. We need that body for the reasons that I explained. On top of our undercolor, we're going to put a thick layer of a cotton and viscose fusible interfacing. This is very soft and open weave, cut on the bias, and it's going to just cover all the steps that are going to go into the undercolor to prevent those steps from showing through on our main fabric. Last but not least, I have a few beautiful elements here hidden underneath the domette, and these are our yarns. First of all, we have some gimp with a number 18 tapestry needle. We're going to use the needle to get the gimp through the fabric to sew our buttonholes. It will elevate the buttonholes beautifully and show a lot of dedication and quality in the work that you're going to be producing. Then we have our ceramide wax thread. Inside our ceramide wax thread are 3 number 7 needles. These are finer needles, and we're going to use these to pad our collars, our canvases, our lapels, and anything that requires finer needlework. In the upcoming episodes, I'm going to show you how to unwrap this, prepare this so that you can easily use it as tailors would in a workshop. Then we have our button thread, that's bonded nylon with a number 5 needle, and we're going to use this to sew our buttons. Whenever you're sewing buttons, it's always good to have a slightly larger needle for better grip. And the thread, of course, usually matches the button, not the fabric. Then we have our 100% silk thread for making our buttonholes. This is, as I said, called silk twist or buttonhole twist. And last but not least, we have a little bit of double-sided fusing, which we're going to use in the corner of our in-breast pockets. Now, one thing very important that I want to highlight. Everything that I have here in front of me is industry standard. This is the same materials that tailors all around the world on Savile Row, Italy, South Korea, France use to make jackets that are sold for £2,000, £3,000, £4,000. While I don't think you should have the most expensive materials, I believe that you should know what industry standard feels like, so that when you go tomorrow in a workshop and you do some work, you are familiar with the feel of all these materials. One of the things that I would like to emphasize before we close off this lesson is that you don't need these bundles per se to follow along with our lessons. Our lessons are for free, will for always be, and they will be available at your demand. If you are a perfectionist, however, or you're living in a country where you don't have access to all the suppliers or all the materials, you would like to evaluate every step that you go through directly with what I have as a result, then these bundles are the right thing for you. There is a traditional model, there is a pagoda model, and if you go through both of them, you will learn the basics and then learn how to turn those basics into advanced skills.